They suck. The rewards for completing Criterion Dungeons and Savage Criterion Dungeons are so bad that this content is dead on arrival for the incredible majority of people that I talk to. But saying just the people that I talk to is actually not really the full truth. It's not even just me saying it either, or talking to people that are saying it. All of my standard feelers are indicating this too. Party Finder on Aether is also extremely low, especially given that it's new content that hasn't even been out for a week. It hasn't even been through a weekend yet. The numbers that we're seeing in PF are shocking. And I'm also getting it in my comment section on video from months ago, where people are just like, haha, you thought that this was going to be gameplay changing. Ha, joke's on you, material's so gameplay changing. As well as I worked like 8 hours on a guide video for Silky, which has easily the lowest click-through ratio and engagement I've had on a video in literally months. Heck, even let's make it personal. Most of my inner friend group that I want to do Criterion with are also fairly resistant to group up and just do it. This is going to be spicy, I'm going to say that in advance. In fact, the overwhelming majority of people that I spoke with had an even more heated take that I'm going to say for another video, where they wish that Criterion and Variant Dungeons were completely scrapped, that they didn't even exist, and instead we got a more interesting relic line. So what is the problem? Well, it's not the difficulty of the content, because frankly these feel like mini Savage fights with some solo pull trash between them. In fact, I would argue Silky was one of the most fun, most well-designed, beautiful fights in this game. It's an artistic masterpiece, it's great. In fact, it would make a better first floor Savage fight than P1 or P2S did this expansion for sure. Sorry, Eric, Krentos, and Hippocampus, but Silky would have been better than you. And I say that because we already know that Savage has an incredibly healthy population of players taking part. Party Finder's absolutely wild the first month of a new tier. It's absolutely crazy. So the fundamental core problem? It's the rewards. To put it quite briefly, it's a very basic chair and an earring and a title. Another problem is that you can also buy the chair off of the market board, so it doesn't even mean anything. As soon as you put it on the market board, it's like, well, that doesn't even mean you cleared the content. Meh. If I see some dude flying around on that chair when I'm doing like a hunt train, I'm like, you probably bought it. It will have no weight in my mind. And I do know that this is a taste thing. Some people are gonna love it, but I can say for myself at least, this is definitely not it's very good for you. It's definitely not for me. Let's start talking about alternatives. What can we actually do to make Criterion more appealing? So if you put the Silky mount as the reward for completing Savage, or for collecting like 10 clears worth of coins from the basic like Criterion version, you'd probably see a ton of people going absolutely wild doing whatever it takes to get this mount. The distinct model, the effects, the animations, everything about it makes it really stand out. It would have a huge amount of people going crazy for it. But instead we have chairs. What? I really feel like the mounts being reversed would have been healthier for the game. Also not to be able to sell the Silky mount, of course, because that instantly makes it just meaningless. What this indicates is that, to little surprise to me, is that the player base is motivated by extrinsic rewards that they deem meaningful. Things like raid gear drops, item levels, stat increases, shiny relic weapons, or mount that they consider generally appealing or very distinct, like Silky with its animations. It's very hard to not notice Silky flying in a hunt train, I'll put it that way. And I love our developers, and they are a blessing, and I'm the one that coined that term, but the materia and the chair anyone will be able to pick up very cheap in a few weeks. It just isn't great. It means nothing. It will mean even less in a week from now, and from there less and less. I honestly suspect in the future that we're going to have relic steps similar to the time-worn relic step from Shadowbringer's relic weapon line incorporated into the Variant and Criterion Dungeons somehow, because it really just feels hollowed out, and it just makes a lot of sense to me to see something like the time-worn artifact added. Now I'm going to turn up the heat, and this is going to be far spicier. I've discussed before on this channel that we do in fact have a gearing problem, and to me it's nothing short of a totally, completely missed opportunity here to see Criterion Dungeons not fill in this gap. In fact, I would go so far as to say it's a complete fucking waste. It's actually a little sad. But I think that you'd be very hard pressed to find someone saying even normal Criterion dungeons are trivial to clear. Silky is the first boss and requires some very real progression rating and understanding of mechanics and coordination from every person in that 4-man group. So much so that I don't think anyone would seriously random queue on Aether and get a clear group for the dungeon anytime soon, if ever. So if you clear, you obviously invested time and are skilled. In fact, you could make a incredibly good argument saying Savage Raiders have an easier time clearing this than people who don't, because they're going to have better item level going into these fights. And I can tell you for a fact that I don't have best in slot, and there are times where I just needed a little bit more shield to completely cheese a mechanic like Silky's total wash mechanic. If you have a big enough shield, won't apply the bleed. So if you have that better item level as a healer, as a scholar, you can basically invalidate that mechanic, and I don't have the shielding power with my lower item level. Point is, this isn't going to be trivial. That's what I really want to emphasize by saying that. The last two relics from both Shadowbringers and Stormblood had relic armor sets tied to them. It wasn't just relic weapons. Most people focused on them like myself, but relic armor was definitely a thing there too. These were of course lower item level than best in slot armor, but they provided a clear and accessible way to get alternative rolls, which is the problem with the gearing that I raised in that video. So I propose, why not give people the opportunity to earn item level 620 basic gear once per week from this? Would implementing the relic armor from Shadowbringers and Stormblood in this kind of fashion really be so bad? I don't even need a new gear model. I don't think most people would even care. Like, just do slight recolors even. That would be really cool. Most people would want the gear for the stats sake for alts. People will immediately raise in my comments, well, some people will immediately raise that that's the same item level as Tombstone gear, unupgraded Tombstone gear, and be super offended. I can already see that happening. But best in slot armor is item level 630. Raiders already got their best in slot job geared out and upgraded their tombstone pieces to 630 already, if not weeks ago. What I'm proposing is obviously inferior by a lot, but what it does enable is people to gear up all jobs with gear that isn't a complete joke. Not to mention you need item level to have an easier time clearing the Criterion Dungeon itself. While I myself had no problem fighting Silky with minimum crafted 610 item level on my tank, people undeniably going in with 635 item level weapons, like I mentioned before, will have a considerably easier time. It's basically incomparable. It's literally no different than minimum item level clearing a savage tier versus having best in slot and clearing the savage tier. It's incomparably different. So that being said, I see absolutely no reason why gear should not be dropped in Criterion Dungeons. If you need to cap it weekly, or at least some form of reward like that. It will never compete with best in slot, and so it's no threat to rating or rating integrity, because people will worry about that. It won't hinder that at all. It requires skill to get. I can only see perks and motivation to this. Like, if you're best in slot ninja and you want to play samurai, you're kind of on an island. You can't really swap to another melee, so we have a gearing problem. This could be a solution to allow these best in slot ninja raiders to actually gear up a samurai. Or such as for me, I want to play my spell speed summoner type gear. I like it when it has that super low GCD. I like infinite behemoths. I love it so much. I enjoy spell speed summoner, but until my main is geared as a healer, meaning I'm the last to get gear pieces because that's how it works with loot distribution and a raid healer's last. But until that happens, I'm not able to funnel gear into my summoner. Ergo, end result, my ability to play my summoner the way I want to for probably the next 2 months is impossible. It'll probably be at least 2 months till I can do that. Like, just to throw it into the video at the end, or another idea is if making gear or recoloring old gear would be too much, maybe just have once a week where you can get a twine to upgrade your tombstone gear, or accessory tombstone gear drop. I mean, like a upgrade for the tombstone drop. At this point, I feel like any of those options would be extremely massively influential on getting people into Criterion content. Anyhow, that's just my thoughts. Criterion, however, I have to say is really fun. I've had a blast, and I hope that other people give it a shot. But I think until there is enough of a reward, people aren't going to give it a shot, because they're just like, I don't see why I'd do it. Especially casual players, and that's not a conversation I want to get into here, but casual players are basically getting owned by mobs at the start, and they're just like not even seeing Silky, and they're like, well, I'm out of here. I don't see anything that I want, and I'm getting wasted. Like, screw this. Anyhow, just my thoughts on this, and if you guys want, it would make me super happy if you consider dropping Silky on that like button and Cat Daddy on that subscribe button. Take care everyone, and I do genuinely hope that you have an absolutely fantastic day.